Hi guys, this is my 2002 Land Rover td5 that I bought as a non-starter, non-runner. Basically what happened is it blew a head gasket. The guy swapped out the head gasket and it wouldn't start. Well, it started with a hell of a effort, and if it started it would only reach about 500 RPMs and then die off slowly, had no power. I just want to show you what I did to remedy the problem. Did a lot of research on the internet to try and figure out what was wrong with the car. I read that, I saw that this ECU unit did get oil in a harness that came from the fuel injectors or the diesel injectors harness that sits over there, and the oil would run through the harness all the way to the ECU unit and end up in that red socket there. So the first thing I did was I took out this ECU unit, opened up the socket and checked if it had any oil in it. There was a little bit of oil, but not much. Cleaned it up, and still the car wouldn't start. I checked the harness completely, checked to see if these ground cables were connected properly, if there was any difference in ground between these earth wires. Everything was fine. I checked inside the fuse box, made sure that all the fuses were working. Basically went through the whole car's electrical system. Next thing I did was I swapped out this MAF sensor. I checked to see if there was electricity coming to these three wires, which there was. One is a ground wire, one is 12 volt when the ignition is on, and the other one is a signal wire. And when the car's at idle, usually it's just a bit less than 1 volt at idle, and that voltage goes up as the car's revs goes up. This one, the MAF sensor read about 1.6 volts at idle if I could get it running. So I swapped out the MAF sensor for a new one. Didn't make any difference. Next thing I did was I checked the oil, the diesel filter. Made sure everything was fine. Yeah. I did read that. I saw that there's a one-way valve on this intake here. What happens is the fuel, it's a low pressure fuel, comes in here and it circulates through the filter, goes back into the fuel pump that sits inside the fuel tank, and then a second time round there's a high pressure side that goes out, comes to the high pressure fuel side, goes out to the engine, to the motor, and then it comes back again, and there's a air bleed fitting inside here that also gets clogged up from time to time. Opened it up, checked that it was working fine, there was nothing wrong with it. Swapped out the fuel filter, diesel filter, because sometimes it does get a crack here, hairline crack, doesn't seal properly, also cause for bad starting. Fixed up all of this, and didn't work. Next thing I did was to check the fuel pressure. It needs to be 5.5 or 4 bar, 5.5 bar, 6 bar, something like that. What I did was I removed that fuel temperature sensor, 19mm socket, and I made my own fuel pressure tester out of a old compression tester. Just basically put a lot of fittings together so that it would fit in there, got the right thread. I used this compression tester and the reading was about 5.5 bars, so there was nothing wrong with the fuel pressure. Also didn't have any throttle response when I started the car, so I took out the wiring loom here at the throttle, at the pedal, checked for continuity, made sure everything was working fine, which it was. Still the car wouldn't start. I did find out that eventually that if I used some quick start, engine start, and just sprayed a very little bit in the intake here and started the car, it would start up and I would have throttle response and the car would run, but there was barely any power, especially below 2000 RPM. But the car would drive, and if I then put the car off and restarted it, it would struggle a lot. And if eventually it would start, there was no throttle response. To struggle with the same problem again. So what I decided then was to take off the tappet cover and look at the injectors. Maybe there was some blow-by through the injector seals or something wasn't right there. Okay, so after taking off the tappet cover or cam cover, I went through all the injectors and made sure that the bump clearance was right. You turn the engine, and every time this cam lobe is at the highest point, you loosen this nut, tighten this bolt until the injector reaches the bottom, and then loosen this one full turn, tighten it again, and then you turn the engine over and go through all 5 of these injectors. They seemed fine. One of them was a bit tight, wasn't adjusted correctly, so at least the car would run a bit smoother then, hopefully, if I could get the fault. I then turned to engine timing or cam chain timing, which I should have done from the beginning. Seeing the fact that this head was removed and the head gasket was replaced, I thought maybe it was out with one tooth when they put it back together again. So I lined everything up and it seemed okay, but just made sure. So what needs to be done is you go to get the car on top dead center on the bottom, on the crankshaft, and make sure that these marks align. But what I didn't know was that this timing sprocket has got 3 nuts, bolts holding it together, holding it onto the cam shaft, and they can move like a vernier cam. You can adjust it. So what happens is that you get the bottom or the crankshaft on top dead center, and then there's a little hole here on top of the head, and inside that hole there's a groove cut into the cam shaft. If you were to look at it from the front like that, here's your head, There's the camshaft. It's got a little groove cut in. So basically you need to put something in there to align it, make sure that it's aligned properly. And at the bottom of the engine on the crankshaft, basically there's something that's the same. I'll just go down here at the bottom, I'll show you quickly. So underneath the car, on the bell housing, there's a hole right there, and through that hole you can see the flywheel, and there's a mark on the flywheel that needs to align with this hole. I'll show it you just now. So if you don't mind my drawing, if this was to represent the hole at the bottom, your flywheel that looks like that has got a groove cut into it, and many other holes drilled into it. I think maybe it's balancing holes or something, I'm not sure. But if you looked through that hole that I just showed you there, that groove that you can see there must align 100% with the hole. And when I did it with this car and checked the top at the tappet or at the camshaft, I saw that when the camshaft was aligned, there was a hole that you could see in the center here, or a round hole, which probably was one of these holes that was aligned with this larger hole. And I realized maybe the timing was out. So what I did was I put the car in gear and just gently rocked it until the flywheel, until everything was lined up here at the bottom of the bell housing, and I then knew that the crankshaft was at top dead center. When I then came to the front, or to the top, I saw that this hole that you can see here, I just explained to you, that it didn't line up. You couldn't put anything in there because that mark wasn't lined up with this hole. What I did then was I loosened these 3 bolts, and I moved this camshaft, knowing that the crankshaft was at top dead center. Moved this one until I could basically put the screwdriver in here, and it would go in and lined up with this mark here. Tightened it up again. It did move quite substantially, maybe half a tooth or so. Tightened it up again and put the tappet cover back on the car, and it started first time 100% without any problems or worries, and it's been running wonderfully since. Just like that. Throttle response, perfect. Thanks guys, I hope this helps.